All right. Okay. What we got? Okay, cool. We're live. Hold on a sec. I'll be right back. All right. There we go. Sorry, I just thought I'd hook up my headphones to my audio interface so I can actually hear myself a bit better. I have something, I think I have something in my throat, or something akin to that. And what we've got here is a little different from a typical stream in the sense that I'm not using Streamlabs right now. And I actually did a test run of this current setup to see if the final video would look okay and smooth and things of that nature, because apparently when I've been using Streamlabs, it's been very stuttery, and I didn't like that like at all. So yeah, I hope things run smoothly. And if at any point my video seems like, choppy, or if it's acting funny whatsoever, please let me know. I'll do whatever I can to make sure I fix it for the next stream. And while I've got it pretty smooth right now, or wait, it was kind of stuttering there for a little bit. I will do whatever I can to fix it in Streamlabs, because Streamlabs is supposed to be like a very good software, but I actually think I have a lot to learn. Okay. So yeah, it's good to see everybody right now. Thank you for attending the Flatland live read live stream. This is part 5, and we have 3 chapters left. And tomorrow we're going to read a different story. And tell me, do you guys want to do this like every weekend? I mean, do you want to do this both Saturday and Sunday? Because I'm okay with only doing one of those days. You know, I don't want to take up too much of your time, and maybe I can do something, to help with, my acting career, my YouTube channels, yes, plural. And I don't know, I'm still trying to work out the kinks of how my life is going to go. And if any of you guys have any kind of suggestion, that'd be great. Because I'm always down to listen, and I'm always down to, brainstorm, spitball, all that kind of good stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, a lot's been going on lately. I mean, number one, we've got a new president. Yes. Not to mention the first ever female vice president. Yeah, so congrats to Joe and Kamala on in that regard. And so yeah, I like to be as inclusive as possible for this channel, but I also want to make sure that it's a very welcoming environment with decent people in it, because I know that sometimes, people tend to not share their political beliefs for fear of alienating their audience. The thing is, when that does happen, they're technically alienating the not so good people, at least if you have progressive beliefs. I mean, I consider myself a progressive kind of guy, a liberal, but I mean, I guess you could consider me like a center left kind of guy, because I do believe that we should have strict gun controls, but I also like using guns, but only at the firing range, because it's a controlled environment. And it just seems to be the proper way to do it. But yeah, sorry for getting a little political right here, but I just thought I'd throw that in there, to pass the time or whatever. Hey guys, I can hear you. I can hear you. Hey, you guys know I can hear you, right? Ironic, I can hear them, but they can't hear me. You guys do know I can hear you, right? So yeah, sorry about that. Not really sure how that works exactly. Maybe my door is just really good at blocking sounds from the inside, but not so good at the outside. I don't understand how that works exactly. But yeah. So if you're watching this pre-recorded, like if you're watching this after the fact, hope this stream is going well for you. You know, before we actually begin, I'm just trying to make sure if anyone is gonna, enter this live stream. You know, that reminds me. While I'm thinking of it, do you guys mind if I start, reading the book almost immediately when the live stream starts, or would you prefer if I waited for people, like in real time? Wait for you? Again, let me know, because, again, I'm always open to feedback, and I want to make this the best kind of streaming experience for everybody as much as possible. So, yeah. What are these other icons in the corner? Insert ad, create highlight video, add stream marker, and share. I didn't know that was a thing. So yeah, once we get to the 10-minute mark, I'll start reading Flatland, the rest of Flatland. Okay. My camera keeps focusing weird. So I'm just going to fix that. Configure video. Turn off autofocus. There we go. Yeah, that autofocus thing was driving me crazy. Excuse me. Oh, yeah, come to think of it, I wonder what it looks like from my end. Oh, that's so freaky. I'm looking at the preview window from on my computer or tablet computer and my phone, and the preview window is like in sync with both. No latency between the two. And that's funny because I'm watching myself doing this live stream and like on my computer, and I'm watching myself on my phone. And so on my phone, it thinks that there are two people watching. Or wait, hold on. There we go. Don't know why it was like that. Weird, right? Okay, since we're past the 10-minute mark, I suppose I should start reading. Show sidebars, Firefox account. Here we go. Okay, there we go. So, let's start reading. Flatland, Chapter 20. Wait, it didn't say what the... How the sphere encouraged me in a vision. Although I had less than a minute for reflection, I felt, by a kind of instinct, that I must conceal my experiences from my wife. Not that I apprehended at the moment any danger from her divulging my secret, but I knew that to any woman in Flatland the narrative of my adventures must needs be unintelligible. So I endeavored to reassure her by some story invented for the occasion that I had accidentally fallen through the trap door of the cellar, and had lain there stunned. The southward attraction in our country is so slight that even to a woman my tale necessarily appeared extraordinary and well nigh incredible. But my wife, whose good sense far exceeds that of the average of her sex, and who perceived that I was unusually excited, did not argue with me on the subject, but insisted that I was ill and required repose. I was glad of an excuse for retiring to my chamber to think quietly over what had happened. When I was at last by myself, a drowsy sensation fell on me, but before my eyes closed, I endeavored to reproduce the third dimension, and especially the process by which a cube is constructed through the motion of a square. It was not so clear as I could have wished, but I remembered that it must be upward, and yet not northward, and I determined steadfastly to retain these words as the clue which, if firmly grasped, could not fail to guide me to the solution. So mechanically speaking, like a charm, the words upward, yet not northward, fell into a sound, refreshing sleep. During my slumber, I had a dream. I was once more by the side of the sphere, whose lustrous hue betokened that he had exchanged his wrath against me for perfectly placability. We were moving together towards a bright but infinitesimally small point, to which my master directed my attention. As we approached, methought there issued from it a slight humming noise, as from one of your Spaceland blue bottles, only less resonant by far, so slight that even the perfect stillness of the vacuum through which we soared, the sound reached not our ears till we checked our flight at a distance from it of something under 20 human diagonals. "Look yonder," said my guide. "In Flatland thou hast lived. Of Lineland thou hast received a vision. Thou hast soared with me to the heights of Spaceland. Now, in order to complete the range of thy experience, I conduct 3 downward to the lowest depths of existence, even to the realm of Pointland, the abyss of no dimensions. Behold yon miserable creature. That point is a being like ourselves, but confined to the non-dimensional gulf. He is himself his own world, his own universe. Of any other than himself he can form no conception. He knows not length, nor breadth, nor height, for he has no experience of them. He has no cognizance of even the number 2, nor has he a thought of plurality, for he is himself his one and all, being really nothing, yet mark his perfect self-contentment, and hence learn his lesson, that to be self-contented is to be vile and ignorant, and that to aspire is better than to be blindly and impotently happy. Now listen. He ceased, and there arose from the little buzzing creature a tiny, low, monotonous, but distinct tinkling, as from one of your Spaceland phonographs, for which I caught these words. Infinite beatitude of existence it is, and there's nothing else beside it. What, said I, does the puny creature mean by it? He means himself, said the sphere. Have you not noticed before now that babies and babyish people who cannot distinguish themselves from the world speak of themselves in the third person? But hush! It fills all space, continued the soliloquizing creature, and what it fills, it is, what it thinks, that it utters, and what it utters, that it hears, and it itself is thinker, utterer, hearer, thought, word, audition. It is the one, and yet the all in all. Ah, the happiness of being. Can you not startle the little thing out of its complacency? Said I. Tell it what it really is, as you told me. Reveal to it the narrow limitations of Pointland, and lead it up to something higher. That is no easy task, said my master. Try you. Hereon, raising my voice to the uttermost, I addressed the point as follows. Silence, silence, contemptible creature. You call yourself the all in all, but you are nothing. Your so-called universe is a mere speck in a line, and a line is a mere shadow as compared with... Hush, hush, you have said enough, interrupted the sphere. Now listen, and mark the effect of your harangue on the king of Pointland. The luster of the monarch, who beamed more brightly than ever upon hearing my words, showed clearly that he retained his complacency, and I had hardly ceased when he took up his strain again. Ah, the joy of thought! What can it not achieve by thinking? Its own thought coming to itself, suggesting of its disparagement, thereby to enhance its happiness. Sweet rebellion stirred up to result in triumph. Ah, the divine creature power of the all in one. Ah, the joy of being. You see, said my teacher, how little your words have done. So far as the monarch understand them all, he accepts them as his own, for he cannot conceive of any other except himself, and plumes himself upon the variety of its thought as an instance of creative power. Let us leave this god of Pointland to the ignorant fruition of his omnipresence and omniscience. Nothing that you or I can do can rescue him from his self-satisfaction. After this, as we floated gently back to Flatland, I could hear the mild voice of my companion pointing to the moral of my vision, and stimulating me to aspire, and to teach others to aspire. He has been angered at first, he confessed, by my ambition to soar to dimensions above the third. But since then, he had received fresh insight, and he was not too proud to acknowledge his error to a pupil. Then he proceeded to initiate me into mysteries yet higher than those I had witnessed, showing me how to construct extra solids by the motion of solids, and double extra solids by the motion of extra solids, and all strictly according to analogy, all by methods so simple, so easy, as to patent even the female sex. And that was chapter 20, or section 21, or section 20. All right, so yeah, so do we have anyone in the chat right now? Let your presence be known. Ah, Zam Kirby. Always a pleasure to see you. Oh, Zam Kirby, before I forget, I actually found you on Instagram, and I tried to send you a message, but it said that you couldn't receive a message. It basically said, like, it's cool that you're on here, and I was wondering if I could follow you. If not, that's perfectly okay. I mean, I don't know, it just seemed, to me, it would just seem kind of weird if I followed without asking first. Well, yeah, I just looked up your name because, you're a cool guy, and I thought, wonder if he has an Instagram. And I was like, oh, there he is right there. I'll send him a message before, I, decide to follow him. And so that's what I did. And it's like, haha, your message didn't go through. I was like, I guess I'll talk to him during the next stream. But yeah. You're free to follow me too. So yeah, I mean, again, you don't want to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Whatever you're comfortable with. But yeah. I mean, Zam Kirby's a very unique name. I mean, like, for a username, I mean. My computer is connected via its cord, right? I mean, it looks like it is. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people tend to have usernames that, I don't know, there's just something about the name Zam Kirby that's different from most, and that's a really good thing. I mean, I'm trying to think of another example, but I can't think of any. And by another example, I mean, like, how people usually make their names. Like I think there was someone with the name Baratheon, and, that's a reference to Game of Thrones, the Baratheon family. But yeah. Anyway, silly me. I've been so focused on the whole Instagram thing, I forgot to ask. How are you? Things are working out pretty well for me. I mean, number one, we have a new president and vice president. Thank God and yay. And oh, forgot to mention this earlier in the video, but here, let me just make sure I can get myself on screen. And speaking of on screen, I got a combination blue screen and green screen. This is the kind in which, you unfold and it's like a big rectangle thing. I do it right now, but my room's a little cramped at the moment. But yeah. Apparently, when you do virtual auditions, a blue background is the best thing to use. makes it look professional. And I actually spoke with a couple of agents, and they said that it actually looked really good. And when I say agents, I mean acting agents. Yeah, like the reason why I didn't have a live stream last Saturday was because I actually had a vir- a virtual online audition seminar that I attended, and one of the things that was mentioned was that whole blue background kind of thing. I had a white background, but apparently that's not a good background for someone to have. But apparently, like a royal blue was best. And by the way, yes, it's a little trick that a blue screen, green screen thing. It's pretty hard to fold if you don't know what you're doing. I looked at like 3 videos before I found one that actually explained it well. But yeah, when I'm not doing stuff with this stuff in the background, I plan to put that blue screen up for auditions. Yeah, it seems really good so far. Yeah, a lot of people have used it for like streams, like video game streams, things like that. Although I will mention one thing. This green screen thing, my bookshelf needs some kind of a hook or something to make sure that it stays up here, because I tried using some kind of a double-sided tape. It's that elastic kind of substance that you might get on it's that kind of sticky substance in which you attach like paper to an object, like limited editions of books or whatever. Like give me a second. I have a lot of stuff on this bookshelf. I think to a fault too. Oh, sorry. Okay, this might be an elaborate example, and I don't mean to flex that much, but this Akira 35th anniversary collection, there's a piece of paper somewhere on here. Here we go. As you can see, the paper is a little loose. Oh, sorry. The paper right here, but the reason why it isn't loose all that much is because there's a sticky substance on it to make sure that it doesn't go away. Come on, I saw it around here somewhere. Okay, that's tape. Come on, I saw it around here somewhere. Oh, yeah. I think that might be it right there. Just waiting for the preview window to catch up with me. Yeah, if you look right there, there's a bit of a sticky substance, like somewhere in here. Actually, it's a little hard to tell, but basically, it just keeps the paper like on the box. And the tape that I was using is made out of a similar substance. And at first it held up the blue screen fine, but after a little while it just fell down. I have a lot of books on the shelf right here. And that Akira set it's heavy. Because they're all hardcovers. But yeah, if you are going to get like a blue screen, green screen kind of thing like that, make sure you have an efficient means of of hanging it. I mean, I personally would have used push pins to like hang it up because it has a couple of flaps on it that are designed to have a pole go through it, like a kind of stand. But but my mom was like, "No, the push pins might fly off or whatever." So I don't know, maybe I'll still try it sometime, but yeah. But enough about green screen stuff and and books that aren't Flatland. Let's read another chapter. You know, we're near the end. So, anyway. Section 21. How I tried to teach the theory of three dimensions to my grandson, and with what success. This is section 21. I awoke rejoicing, and began to reflect on the glorious career before me. I would go forth, methought, at once, and evangelize the whole of Flatland, even to women and soldiers, should the gospel of three dimensions be proclaimed. I would begin with my wife. Just as I had decided on the plan of my operations, I heard the sound of many voices in the street, commanding silence. Then followed a louder voice. It was a herald's proclamation. Listening attentively, I recognized the words of the resolution of the council, enjoining the arrest, imprisonment, or execution of anyone who should pervert the minds of people by delusions, and by professing to have received revelations from another world. I reflected. This danger was not to be trifled with. It would be better to avoid it by omitting all mention of my revelation, and by proceeding on the path of demonstration, which, after all, seemed so simple and so conclusive that nothing would be lost by discarding the former means. Upward, not northward, was the clue to the whole proof. It had seemed to me fairly clear before I fell asleep, and when I first awoke, fresh from my dream, it had appeared as patent as arithmetic, but somehow it did not seem to me so obvious now. Though my wife entered the room opportunely at just that moment, I decided, after we exchanged a few words of commonplace conversation, not to begin with her. Sorry, I thought I saw something. My pentagonal sons were men of character and standing, and physicians of no mean reputation, but not great in mathematics, and in that respect unfit for my purpose. But it occurred to me that a young and docile hexagon with a mathematical turn would be a most suitable pupil. Why therefore not make my first experiment with my little precocious grandson, whose casual remarks on the meaning of 3 to the third had met with the approval of the sphere? Discussing the matter with him, a mere boy, I should be in perfect safety, for he would know nothing of the proclamation of the council, whereas I could not feel sure that my sons, so greatly do their patriotism and reverence for the circles predominate over mere blind affection, might not feel compelled to hand me over to the prefect if they found me seriously maintaining the seditious heresy of the third dimension. But the first thing to be done was to satisfy in some way the curiosity of my wife, who naturally wished to know something of the reasons for which the circle had desired that mysterious interview, and of the means by which he had entered the house. Without entering into the details of the elaborate account I gave her, an account, I fear, not quite so consistent with truth as my readers in Spaceland might desire, I must be content with saying that I succeed at last in persuading her to return quietly to her household duties without eliciting from me any reference to the world of three dimensions. This done, I immediately sent for my grandson, for, to confess the truth, I felt that all that I had seen and heard was in some strange way slipping away from me, like the image of a half-grasped, tantalizing dream, and I longed to essay my skill in making a first disciple. When my grandson entered the room, I carefully secured the door. Then, sitting down by his side, "Hello, Killer Pro." Okay. Where? Oh, yeah. When my grandson entered the room, I carefully secured the door. Then, sitting down by his side and taking our mathematical tablets, or as you would call them, lines, I told him we would resume the lesson of yesterday. I taught him once more how a point by motion in one dimension produces a line, and how a straight line in 2 dimensions produces a square. After this, forcing a laugh, I said, "And now, you scamp, you wanted to make believe that a square may in the same way by motion upward, not northward, produce another figure, a sort of extra space in 3 dimensions. Say that again, you young rascal." At this moment, we heard once more the herald's "Oh yes! Oh yes!" outside in the street, proclaiming the resolution of the council. Young though he was, my grandson, who was unusually intelligent for his age, and bred up in perfect reverence for the authority of the circles, took in the situation with an acuteness for which I was quite unprepared. He remained silent till the last words of the proclamation had died away, and then bursting into tears, "Dear grandpapa," he said, "that was only my fun, and of course I meant nothing at all by it, and we did not know anything about... We did not know anything then about the new law, and I don't think I said anything about the 3rd dimension, and I'm sure I did not say one word about upward, not northward, for that would be such nonsense, you know. How could a thing move upward and not northward, upward and not northward? Even if I were a baby, I could not be so absurd as that. How silly it is." "Not at all," said I, losing my temper. "Here, for example, I take this square," and at the word I grasped a movable square which was lying at hand, "and I move it, you see, not northward, but, yes, I move it upward. That is to say, northward, but I move it somewhere not exactly like this, but somehow." Here I brought my sentence to an inane conclusion, shaking the square about in a preposterous manner, much to the amusement of my grandson, who burst out laughter louder than ever, and declared that I was not teaching him, but joking with him. And so saying, he unlocked the door and ran out of the room. Thus ended my first attempt to convert a pupil to the gospel of 3 dimensions. Okay, that was section 21, and I believe there's one more. Killer Pro, I think you may have missed that many chapters. But it's all right. I mean, the stuff is available to watch on my YouTube channel. But with that said, however, I think there might be a couple of videos in which the video quality is very, very choppy. Like, I'm talking about slideshow low frame rate kind of choppy. And you know, I wish I had looked over, like, tested the video out more than I did, because I actually did a little test live stream before this live stream, a kind of private live stream, I guess you could say, to make sure that the video quality was good, smooth, things like that. And I hope it does look smooth and good. The reason why I bring that up is because while it might be okay to listen to, watching it, on the other hand, might not so much, you know? I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to watch a live stream in which the video was choppier than a knife. But again, you know, this is kind of a live reading amateur audiobook kind of thing, so you don't necessarily have to watch it. You can just listen to it. I mean, heck, you can listen to it in your car if you like, you know, just don't watch the video. I mean, naturally, you shouldn't watch videos while driving, because, you know, you need to make sure that your eyes are on the road for pretty much the whole trip, unless you're stopped somewhere. And hopefully the video is good now. Hang on, I'm just checking the... Oh, sorry. Yeah, it seems to be smooth so far. Keep forgetting I have a mouse right here and I don't need to use the trackpad up here on my keyboard. Because, you know, if I click or whatever, the microphone picks it up and it's very good. Very good at picking things up. Okay, good. The video is good. Good. That's good to know. Oh, excuse me, there's something in my nose. Forgive me, I'm looking for something and I can't seem to find it. Give me a sec. Here it is. Okay, that's good. That's really, really good. I felt like such an idiot for not realizing just how choppy the video was. It's like, oh my god, this is an amateur mistake. Oh, and by the way, that sticky substance I was describing of how I hung the green screen, this was the thing right here. It's a thing called nanotape. You see, it's a kind of silicone tape in which you take a piece, you cut it off, and then you remove this plastic film from one of the sides so that both sides are double-sided and can stick things. So for example, I take this tiny piece of tape. Now, keep in mind, I use much bigger pieces of this stuff on the green screen, but as you can see, you know, you have this little piece right here, and right now it only has one sticky side to it, this tape. But man, I picked a great day to cut my nails. There's this plastic film sheet thing that I remove, and here, like, take this remote for instance. I'll stick it right here on the back of the remote, and then it stays up. Now, like I said, I use much bigger pieces of the tape to hang the green screen, but like the first few times I've done it, it hung up pretty well. But after using it again and again, like even with fresh pieces of tape, it came down eventually. So that's why I got to get hooks or something to put on my bookshelf. Anyway, let's get it down. And they claim that this stuff is reusable, but I myself am not sure if I'd really reuse it. There we go. Oh, cool. Cool, Zam Kirby. Yeah, I also feel like an idiot for just not bringing out the tape sooner and bringing out a freaking 35th anniversary set of Akira, and you can barely see the sticky substance holding up the paper on the box. Anywho, come on. And boom. I said boom. There we go. I followed you back. Yeah, it is a cool box. It'll probably take me a while to put it back on the lower shelf right there. It's a pretty heavy box, oh, speaking of boxes, let's read the last chapter of Flatland. Thank you. I do have a nice set of books. All right. Last chapter. All right. Section 22. How I then tried to diffuse the theory of 3 dimensions by other means, and of the result. My failure with my grandson did not encourage me to communicate my secret to others of my household. Yet, neither was I led by it to despair of success. Only I saw that I must not wholly rely on the catchphrase, upward, not northward, but must rather endeavor to seek a demonstration by setting before the public a clear view of the whole subject. And for this purpose, it seemed necessary to resort to writing. So I devoted several months in privacy to the composition of a treatise on the mysteries of 3 dimensions, only with the view of evading the law, if possible. I spoke not of a physical dimension, but of a thought-land, whence, in theory, a figure could look down upon Flatland and see simultaneously the inside of all things, and where it was possible that there might be supposed to exist a figure environed, as it were, with 6 squares, and contained 8 terminal points. But in writing this book I found myself sadly hampered by the impossibility of drawing such diagrams as were necessary for my purpose, for of course, in our country of Flatland, there are no tablets, but lines, and no diagrams, but lines, all in one straight line, and only distinguishable by difference of size and brightness. So that, when I had finished my treatise, which I titled Through Flatland to Thoughtland, I could not feel certain that many would understand my meaning. Meanwhile, my wife was under a cloud. All pleasures palled upon me. All sights tantalized and tempted me to outspoke treason, because I could not compare what I saw in 2 dimensions with what it really was if seen in 3, and could hardly refrain from making my comparisons aloud. I neglected my clients and my own business to give myself to the contemplation of the mysteries which I had once beheld, yet which I could impart to no one, and found daily more difficult to reproduce even before my own mental vision. One day, about 11 months after my return from Spaceland, I tried to see a cube with my eye closed, but failed. And though I succeeded afterwards, I was not then quite certain, nor have I been ever afterwards, that I had exactly realized the original. This made me more melancholy than before, and determined me to take some step. Yet what, I knew not. I felt that I would have been willing to sacrifice my life for the cause, if thereby I could have produced conviction. But if I could not convince my grandson, how could I convince the highest and most developed circles in the land? And yet, at times, my spirit was too strong for me, and I gave vent to dangerous utterances. Already, I was considered heterodox, if not treasonable, and I was keenly alive to the danger of my position. Nevertheless, I could not at times refrain from bursting out into suspicion or half-seditious utterances, even among the highest polygonal or circular society. When, for example, the question arose about the treatment of those lunatics who said they had received the power of seeing the inside of things, I would quote the saying of an ancient circle, who declared that prophets and inspired people are always considered by the majority to be mad, and I could not help occasionally dropping such expressions as the eye that discerns the interiors of things, and the all-seeing land. For once or twice I even let fall the forbidden terms, the 3rd and 4th dimensions. At last, to complete a series of minor indiscretions, at a meeting of our local speculative society held at the palace of the prefect himself, some extremely silly person having read an elaborate paper exhibiting the precise reasons why Providence has limited the number of dimensions to 2, and why the attribute of omnipotence is assigned to the Supreme alone, I so far forgot myself as to give an exact account of the whole of my voyage with the sphere into space, and to the assembly hall in our metropolis, and then to space again, and of my return home, and of everything that I had seen and heard in fact or vision. At first, indeed, I pretended that I was describing the imaginary experiences of a fictitious person, but my enthusiasm soon forced me to throw off all disguise, and finally, in a fervent peroration, I exhorted all my hearers to divest themselves of prejudice and to become believers in the third dimension. Need I say that I was at once arrested and taken before the council? Next morning, standing in the very place where but a very few months ago the sphere had stood in my company, I was allowed to begin and to continue my narration unquestioned and uninterrupted. But from the first I foresaw my fate, for the president, noting that a guard of the better sort of policemen was in attendance, of angularity little, if at all, under 55 degrees, ordered them to be relieved before I began my defense, by an inferior class of 2 or 3 degrees. I knew only too well what that meant. I was to be executed or imprisoned, and my story was to be kept secret from the world by the simultaneous destruction of the officials who had heard it. And this being the case, the president desired to substitute the cheaper for the more expensive victims. After I had concluded my defense, the president, perhaps perceiving that some of the junior circles had been moved by evident earnestness, asked me 2 questions. 1. Whether I could indicate the direction which I meant when I used the words upward, not northward. 2. Whether I could, by any diagrams or descriptions, other than the enumeration of imaginary sides and angles, indicate the figure I was pleased to call a cube. I declared that I could say nothing more, and that I must commit myself to the truth, whose cause would surely prevail in the end. The president replied that he quite concurred with my sentiment, and that I could not do better. I must be sentenced to perpetual imprisonment, but if the truth intended that I should emerge from prison and evangelize the world, the truth might be trusted to bring that result to pass. Meanwhile, I should be subjected to no discomfort that was not necessary to preclude escape, and unless I forfeited the privilege by misconduct, I should be occasionally permitted to see my brother who had preceded me to my prison. 7 years have elapsed, and I am still a prisoner. Oh, shit. And if I expect the occasional visits of my brother, debarred from all companionship save that of my jailers. My brother is one of the best of squares, just sensible, cheerful, and not without fraternal affection. Yet, I confess that my weekly interviews, at least in one respect, cause me the bitterest pain. He was present when the sphere manifested himself in the council chamber. He saw the sphere's changing sections. He heard the explanation of the phenomena then given to the circles. Since that time, scarcely a week has passed during the 7 whole years without his hearing from me a repetition of the part I played in that manifestation, together with ample descriptions of all the phenomena in Spaceland, and the arguments for the existence of solid things derivable from analogy. Yet, I take shame to be forced to confess it. My brother has not yet grasped the nature of 3 dimensions, and frankly avows his disbelief in the existence of spheres. Hence, I am absolutely destitute of converts, and for aught that I can see, the millennial revelation has been made to me for nothing. Prometheus up in Spaceland was bound for bringing down fire for the mortals, but I, poor Flatland Prometheus, lie here in prison for bringing down nothing to my countrymen. Yet I exist in the hope that these memoirs, in some manner, I know not how, may find their way to the minds of humanity in some dimension, and may stir up a race of rebels who shall refuse to be confined to limited dimensionality. That is the hope of my brighter moments. Alas, it is not always so. Heavily weights on me at times the burdensome reflection that I cannot honestly say I am confident as the exact shape of the once seen oft-regretted cube, and in my nightly visions the mysterious precept, upward, not northward, haunts me like a soul-devouring sphinx. It is part of the martyrdom which I endure for the case of the truth, that there are seasons of mental weakness, when cubes and spheres flit away into the background of scarce possible existences, when the land of 3 dimensions seems almost as visionary as the land of 1 or none, nay, when even this hard wall that bars me from my freedom, these very tablets on which I am writing, and all substantial realities of Flatland itself, appear no better than the offspring of a diseased imagination, or the baseless fabric of a dream. And that is the end of Flatland. That was a surprisingly depressing ending. And this right here is the final image in the book. I'm just lowering it a little bit. It says the end of Flatland. Now, Alice Through the Looking Glass was like, it was an acid trip in book form. that let's just admit, that's what it was, you know. Yeah. Uh, when you say I'm sorry, yeah, I know that is kind of a weird ending. It seems like it's open for like a sequel or something. So basically, our main character, the square lawyer, he he tried to forget the stuff that he learned, but he was so fascinated by it that he was persecuted for his beliefs. He's now in prison, and he's hoping that one day his beliefs will be shared by other people. That word will get out of other dimensions besides the 2 dimension that he and everyone else currently live in. Again, people fear what they don't understand. Like, we live in a 3rd dimension, and I think if we were introduced to the concept of a 4th dimension, we wouldn't be able to understand anything. You know, it'd be so foreign or alien of a concept to us that we would probably be fearful of it. I mean, when I say we, I mean I mean several, a large chunk of humanity would see it that way. People like to live in their own little bubbles because it's comfortable for them. They at least have a basic meaning of the environment in which they live in. But introduce a new factor into it that contradicts their beliefs or makes it look okay, it makes them uncomfortable. Oh man, is my video stuttering? I think my video's stuttering. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed that book overall. It definitely makes you think, pardon the pun, outside of the box. The next one I was going to read was a one of the short stories inside this book. Uh, the story that's inside this book is a story called "I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream." It's written by Harlan Ellison, and even though this isn't public domain, even though this isn't public domain, I remember reading a section of this Minecraft book to all of you. Like, I read a section out loud and I wasn't penalized for it or whatever. Like, YouTube wasn't like, oh, you can't do that. So, like, if I get some kind of copyright strike for this, for a, for when I, read this one, then, I just won't make money off of it, which, is fine. It's not exactly about the money for me, at least when it comes to these live reading things, but it'd be nice, but I'm realistic. Yeah, it was a good book in my opinion. Flatland, a very unique one in my opinion too. Again, it makes you think in different dimensions. Here, let me just give you a little teaser of what I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is like. First, let me take a sip of water. My lips suddenly feel very dry. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison. Limp, the body of Gorrister hung from the pink pallet, unsupported, hanging high above us in the computer chamber, and it did not shiver in the chill, oily breeze that blew eternally through the main cavern. The body hung head down, attached to the underside of the pallet by the sole of its right foot. It had been drained of blood through a precise incision made from ear to ear under the lantern jaw. There was no blood on the reflective surface of the metal floor. When Gorrister joined our group and looked up at himself, it was already too late for us to realize that once again, Am had duped us, had had his fun. It had been a diversion on the part of the machine. 3 of us had vomited, turning away from one another in a reflex as ancient as the nausea that had produced it. Gorrister went white. It was almost as though he had seen a voodoo fetish and was afraid for the future. "Oh, God," he mumbled and walked away. The 3 of us followed him after a time and found him sitting with his back to one of the smaller chittering banks, his head in his hands. Ellen knelt down beside him and stroked his hair. He didn't move, but his voice came out of his covered face quite clearly. "Why doesn't it just do a sin and get it over with? Christ, I don't know how much longer I can go on like this." It was our 109th year in the computer. He was speaking for all of us. I don't know about you, but that's one hell of a beginning to a story. Oh, and by the way, the name Am, it's spelled capital A, capital M. Like 10 o'clock a.m., but it's pronounced Am. The author, Harlan Ellison, said so. But yeah, I'm going to be posting about tomorrow's live read, and it'll be launched at the post about tomorrow's live stream will be posted tonight at 7 p.m. I scheduled it to do so. But yeah, I think this next story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, that'll be the next read for ourselves tomorrow, 4 p.m. same time. 4 p.m. PST, I mean. But yeah, Harlan Ellison is actually a very renowned author, or was a well-renowned author. He passed away, I believe, last year, the year before that. He actually wrote a story called Soldier, and tell me if you've heard this before. It's the story about a soldier who goes back in time to stop an upcoming apocalypse. Well, you see, that short story got turned into an episode of The Outer Limits. The Outer Limits is basically an old TV show that was exactly like The Twilight Zone, only it was more focused on science fiction rather than supernatural stuff. And so this was like in the 60s, I believe, maybe a bit later. But the reason why I bring this up is because James Cameron wrote a little movie called The Terminator, which was the story of a soldier who goes back in time to stop an apocalypse. And there are a lot of themes that were very similar to the short story Soldier. And Harlan Ellison, was accusing, he actually accused James Cameron of, ripping off his story Soldier. And so now the credits of Terminator, they now acknowledge that Harlan Ellison had some contributions to the story because it was so similar that the similarities were just so, well, identical that, a compromise was made. Harlan Ellison actually had a YouTube channel. And I totally forgot to mention this. There's actually a video game based off of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I myself haven't played it, but I'd be down to playing it sometime. It's an old school point and click adventure game that was made in the 90s. Apparently because it's, kind of old and outdated in some aspects, the best way to play it is with a walkthrough. And so I might do that sometime. Maybe not on this channel, maybe a different channel. I don't know. So, you guys want to add anything, before I end this live stream? Because again, I'm willing to listen. I know the feeling, Zam Kirby, believe me. I feel like I should be saying something else profound, like after everything we just discussed. I'm the kind of guy that likes to end on a high note. Oh, well, I guess I should impart some recommendations for reading material. If you guys like Star Wars and Avatar The Last Airbender, you should really check out their spin off comics. The Avatar The Last Airbender comics take place after season 3 of Avatar The Last Airbender, and it feels like you're watching an episode of the show. And the Star Wars comics, like the canon comics, are also really good. In fact, let me get my recommended one that you start reading if you want to get into Star Wars comics. I'll be right back. It's nearby. Okay, here it is. It's this. Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. I can't really see. Oh, that other channel is going quite well. I almost have all the materials that I need. It's almost ready. It's so close to being ready, it's ridiculous. But anyway, this is the thing I was talking about. Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. It's important to know that even though it doesn't say the subtitle on here there's no subtitle on here, it is separate from every other Darth Vader series. Basically, this story takes place immediately after Darth Vader's big no moment in Star Wars Episode 3. It's a great story in my opinion. Like a lot of people know Darth Vader as like the ultimate badass, but the thing is, he didn't start out as like the ultimate Dark Lord of the Sith. Even after, he was transformed and everything, he had to work his way up to gain the respect of everyone in the Empire. But yeah, that's my recommendation if you want to start reading Star Wars comics, because I think it's fair to say that Darth Vader is one of, if not the most compelling character in the entire Star Wars franchise. I mean, you've seen the helmet, the cape, things like that. But yeah, Game 2 page is going well. And, I have a bunch of books that are probably going to be used on that channel. I'm just waiting for a proper 2, because I want to make sure that this new channel, starts with a bang. Oh, and, you see, there's this thing, I'm going to have it be part of this thing called the BookTube community. And one of the people that I've been checking out is Reading with Cindy, and she's really funny. I'm putting down her name right now. That's her channel. Basically, the BookTube community reads a bunch of books. And she's the booktuber that I keep coming back to. Yeah, I have a lot of books on my shelf, but some of it I think needs to be rearranged. Like, there are a bunch of books on here that I haven't read yet, and I probably should to make more space for other books that I want on there. I was also maybe going to give her a shout out on my channel, so we'll see. Oh, by the way, again, Halo the Fall of Reach is an excellent book, if I recall correctly. I still got to do my review for that. So, yeah, now that I've got all these recommendations out of the way and, talked a little bit about the BookTube community and my upcoming channel, I think I think we've gotten out of the way what, I need to say any kind of last remarks. So I want to thank you all for checking out this live stream. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow with uh, I Have No Mouth and I Can't Scream by Harlan Ellison. And if I can't monetize that video, oh well, just getting the story out there is always cool. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.